Welcome. In today's video exercise, and this is part of my free sampling, kind of test the waters, kick the tires. For those who have not signed up for my Udemy courses, the full in-depth courses, or my All Access Pass, my name is Robert Farrell. Welcome to my video presentation. If you're viewing on YouTube, welcome. If you're here on Udemy, welcome too. Now, the advantage, of course, watching this video on Udemy is you can take notes up on the top right-hand corner up in here. You could also download the file, etc., ask me questions. I'm here to help you. My name is Robert Farrell. I have 26 years of Adobe production, great technique, starting out, of course, with desktop publishing back in the day with Quark Express, actually not Quark Express originally, but Adobe Illustrator in 1987. Then soon I went into all this PageMaker, and from there I started my career in the computer digital graphics. So in today's course, by request, a student of mine requested to share with her how to build a 25-inch by 11-inch trifold brochure. Now that's kind of an odd size, but we can let InDesign do the heavy lifting. So the first thing we want to do here is go to File, New File, Command-N, Macintosh, of course, Control-N. Now, when working in print production, for those of you that are not very fluent with print production, you should basically be working in points and picas. That's a more finite or fine-tuned unit of measurement, not inches. However, you don't have to be shy to say, well, I don't know anything about points and picas. So I'm going to give you a quick little lesson in points and picas. There are 72 points to an inch. Therefore, half inch would be 36 inches. A quarter inch would be half of that, would be 18. Now, as far as points and picas go, there are 6 picas, P-I-C-A, 6 picas, actually also known as postscript picas. There are 6 picas to an inch. Therefore, there's 12 points to equal 1 pica. Therefore, 6 times 12 is 72. So that's where the math comes in. So again, if you slept in 4th grade math class, that could potentially hurt your head. Now, you could make this 25 inches wide by 11 inches high by simply doing 25 in either the IN or 25 inches. Okay. Now, rather than do that, I want to get you very comfortable working in points and picas. It's really a no-brainer. If you simply understand that your base is 6, meaning that's for every inch 6 equals 1, if you look at it that way, 1 inch equals 6. So I want to have 25.5 inches. So what would my mathematical calculation be? Now, you didn't think this is going to be math, but InDesign does it for you. In fact, all Adobe products do the math for you in a dialog box. Illustrator, Dreamweaver, InDesign. My objective is to share simple techniques. These are techniques you're not going to find in most other video training courses. I share with you the lazy techniques of how to let the software work for you. So I could just take 6, and I could take 6 times 25.5 equals that. That's how many picas are in 25.5 inches. Then I could say 6 times 11, bingo, boingo, bongo. Now that's a technical word if you want to take a note on that. That was bingo, boingo, or was it bongo, bingo? I forget. Maybe I shouldn't have slept through that class. Okay. Now, again, I assume this is the width and the height. Okay, columns. Now, to make this a little less confusing, we're not going to set up columns. I'm going to show you a better way to do it, a less confusing way to do it. Now, margin basically means that this is going to be a half-inch margin all the way around. Now, you don't have to do that. Typical margin would be 18 points, which would be a quarter inch. So basically, you could either do 18 points or a quarter inch, but just because we can, we're going to leave this totally by default. Now, the other thing you want to consider too is this is a non-facing page document. So as an example, a facing page document would be a magazine, something that has left and right pages. Now, we are going to have 2 pages, but I'm going to share with you, I'm not going to jump into 2 pages right away. I'm just going to get started with 1 page to share with you how I can actually build that second page. Now, here's a good production technique. Let's say that you're going to be doing a lot of these 25.5 inch by 11 inch trifold brochures. So you may choose to save this as a preset, and I would call this exactly what it is. Okay, now before I do that, what I want to share with you is when you make a document in InDesign for the first time. Now, this is InDesign CS6. They have something called primary text frame. In earlier versions, it was differently named. Okay, so we want to have this selected, absolutely selected. If it's not selected, then you have to create this yourself. So I highly suggest that you have this selected by default. That's going to save you a little bit of headache. So I'm going to go to save, and I'm going to call this what it is, which is 25.5 times 11 trifold, or anything that makes sense to you. Now, when naming presets, of course, that should be a period, not a comma. When naming presets, don't do this ambiguous something that you're going to remember for today. Do something that's very simple to understand for next week, next month, next year, etc., etc. So now that I saved that preset. Now the advantage of what I just did, if I was to cancel out of this and make myself a new document file, new, Command-N, Control-N for Windows, I can actually go and set that preset, and it's going to change my parameters. So it's just working smart. It's letting the software work for you. Now don't confuse this with a template, because we can actually save this when we're done as a template. So we're going to hit OK. Now, the first thing, if you watch any of my videos, the first thing I always do is save the file. So under the File menu, File, Save, Command-S. Not Save As, Save, because we're not saving it as something else. We're just saving it to begin with. Now, what I typically do, I'm going to just put this on my desktop. And what I would do, if I'm doing websites, I have a website folder. If I'm doing print work, I'm going to have a print projects folder, or anything that makes sense to you. Now, this hyphen I'm doing is just a habit from working with web design. So what I would typically do is call this what it is, client number. Perhaps you want to put a client number on your project name, but I'm just going to call this what it is, which is 25 by, actually it's 25.5 by 11 trifold. Now here's the important step. This is probably not going to be the first or the second or third version, so I'm going to say trifold version 1, as opposed to version 2, version 3, version 4. If you watched my Dreamweaver videos, you'll know what I'm talking about. So this is a very important step, and I go ahead and save that. Okay, now, when I made myself a new document and I asked it to have the primary text frame, this is the text frame right here it's talking about right there. It's automatically made for you. All you have to do is start typing into it. But we're not there yet. Now, if you're working in, and this is an important step, if you're working in an earlier version of InDesign, CS5, CS5.5, you have to activate this text frame by holding Command, Shift, and clicking. Very important step. If you're in a previous version, not Dreamweaver CS6, I'm sorry, InDesign CS6, you have to do Command, Shift, Click Macintosh or Control, Shift, Click on Windows to activate this text frame. So I just want to be very clear about that. Okay. So now what you have to understand and comprehend on how do you want to fold this, so you can basically fold this. So basically look at this as the centerpiece. You can fold this left into the center and the right into the center, or you can do an accordion fold. So there's different types of ways to fold things with the trifold. So what you need to pay attention to is what's going to be the front and what's going to be the back. So this is page 1, and the second will make page 2. Okay, so it just depends on what you want to do with this as far as the pages go. Now here's what I'd like to suggest for you. Okay, if we're going to make a second page, I don't want to reinvent the wheel. The layout of this brochure should be identical for both. Now, I'm not talking about the contents and the graphics. I'm just talking about the overall layout. So it's probably going to make a lot of sense. I'm working right now in Essentials. Now, if you're not in Essentials, go and reset to Essentials. This one will behave exactly as it does on my computer as it does on your computer. Okay, so we're going to go over here to Pages, and inside of Pages, there's something called Master Page. Now you might say, wait a second, Master Pages, isn't that for magazine layout? Well, it could be, but basically it could be for anything that you want to create, that you don't want to have to reinvent the wheel and create from scratch. So very important step. This is my page dialog box. So as an example, here's how I can make new pages. Okay, what I want to do based on these choices, and software simply comes down to choices, by the way. We're going to double click right here and go to the master page. So again, let's understand something. Double clicking here, I'm in the document page. Double clicking here, I'm in the master page. Two different things. Okay, so now visually it looks the same, but double clicking here, see it's page 1. Double clicking here is master A, and it says so right there. So we're going to close that just by clicking right here. Now here's what we're going to do. We're going to let InDesign do the math for us to break this into a trifold. Now, what you have to design, and this is what you have to decide rather, and this is totally up to you, is how much space that you want to have, how many How many columns do you want to have? Well, obviously it's 3, but and how many spaces between those columns? So let's say the answer to that is you want to have 1/2 inch. Okay, so that's very simple to do. So here's what we can do. Right now, this is the width and this is the height based on what's selected. Now, all Adobe software thinks and works the same way. Right now, it's not selected, so I have no information. So rule number 1, and I want you guys to write this down, and if you're watching this in Udemy, this will get you through any software program. It's a simple 3-word rule. Create, select, edit. Create, select, edit. Create, select, edit. Create, select, edit. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, in order to affect something, you have to select something. But in order to select something, it has to be created. Now, this particular program is based on objects. Everything you create in this program is an object. Therefore, anything about the object is under the object menu. This thinks a lot of the ways that Adobe Illustrator thinks. And if you look at my Adobe Illustrator courses, you'll understand what I'm talking about. Right now, nothing's selected. So if nothing's selected, then how can I do something to the object? Because nothing's selected. Everything is grayed out because I have nothing selected. So rule number 1, in order to affect something, of course, I need to select something. In this particular case, I'm selecting an object. More specifically, this is a text box object. More specifically than that, it was my primary text frame, which of course the advantage of doing that, it goes into your master pages. So if you were to make a new document and you didn't select this, then you don't have a master page text frame. Now I do, because I went to my pages, I double clicked up here, and I'm inside this master text frame. So again, let's make this into 3 separate boxes. Now, I'm not talking about 3 columns. I'm talking about 3 separate boxes because I might want to have 3 specific pieces of content that are not really related to each other. Now, if in fact you're going to have a flowing magazine layout, well, that would be different. Then I would physically make something 3 columns where one piece of text column goes into the other column, etc., etc. That's not the case here with the trifold brochure. So here's what we can do. We can let InDesign do the math for us to break this up into 3 columns or 3 separate text boxes. Now, the thing that you want to pay attention to, again, it's not selected, it is selected. It's up here in the top left is where I measure from. That's my reference point. I do want to measure from the top left-hand corner. That's going to be important to me. So right now, the width of this is X amount. That's the width. That's basically 25.5 inches, which we found out to be 6 times 25.5. Okay, so here's what we need to do. InDesign will do the math for us, but first we have to get rid of the negative space. We have to get rid of the total amount of spaces. Now, this next step I call the hand technique, the hand tool. I have 5 fingers. How many spaces? Well, I have 4 spaces between 5 fingers. Now, that assumes that you have 5 fingers. If you don't have 5 fingers, my sympathies to you, and I sincerely mean that. Okay? So, basically, if you're not sure about how many spaces, just look at your hand. 5 fingers, 4 spaces. So, if I have 3 boxes, I have 2 spaces. If I had 900 boxes, okay, I would have how many spaces? Well, it's always 1 less. I'd have 899 spaces, etc., etc., etc. So you got to get in the habit of understanding that 5 fingers give you 4 spaces. It's always 1 less. So what we're going to do is get rid of that space. So we're going to say minus 3. Now 3 what? Well, 3 picas. Now if you want to do inches, you can actually say minus 0.5 inches. We're not going to do that. You can actually say minus 0.5 and the inch mark. Well, actually, just let's do that to keep it simple. So that got rid of the space. Okay, but what we have to do, we have to be on top of our game. We're not just getting rid of a 1/2 inch, we're getting rid of a 1/2 inch times 2, which happens to be an inch. So we're going to say minus 6, as in 1 inch. So that gets rid of the space here. Okay, so I got rid of the space from the width. Very important step. So now I could simply do basic whole number 4th grade math, or hopefully maybe some of you smarter guys and gals, 2nd grade math. And I'm simply going to divide this right up here in the property palette, divided by 3. Bingo, bango, boingo. So how cool is that? Okay, now here's where the magic happens. I now want to basically go and edit this and do something called step and repeat. So now you would think, well, how come that's not under the object menu because you're doing something to the object? Well, that's true, but InDesign is under the edit menu for something called step and repeat. The shortcut for that is Command Option U. I would highly suggest you get to know that shortcut because it's going to save you a lot of headaches. Windows, of course, that'd be Control Alt U. So based on these choices, and that's all dialog boxes are, and again, my objective is to get you to think the way the software thinks. Through that type of thinking, it's very, very simple to make changes and make decisions. So based on these choices, we want to move this horizontally, not vertically. We want a total of 2 of these. So we're going to say 2. We're going to hit the Tab key, and we're going to come down here. So we want to move this the width of itself. Okay, now the width of itself is what? Well, that's right here. So let's cancel this for a second. Let me show you a very, very lazy technique. And I'm a lazy guy. I like the software work for me. So I'm actually going to take that number and Command C, copy. Copy Macintosh, Control C for Windows. So now, when I go into step and repeat, I could simply say, I want 2 of these. Vertically, I don't want to move this. I'm going to type in 0. Horizontally, paste. But we're not done yet. Because now we need to put back in the space, which was ½ inch. So how do we possibly do that? Well, ½ inch, if there's 6 picas to an inch, ½ inch is 3. So I need to plus 3. Now if I hit the preview button right there, there it goes right there. So if I hit OK, there are my 3 boxes. Absolutely perfect, absolutely genius, set up one step at a time. Now here's the other thing you might want to consider. Anything about the object is under the object menu. So as an example, I'm just going to put some placeholder text in here. And so wherever I click, that's just going to basically, I have 1 box, 2 box, 3 boxes. So if I click right here, I can start typing in. Now, InDesign, now keep in mind this is a very large document. So I'm basically not zoomed in, so my point size at 12 point looks very, very small. Now, one of the things I can do is anything about type is under the type menu. And I can insert, based on these choices, I could fill with placeholder text. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to zoom in here for a second. Command plus Macintosh, Control plus Windows. Now what I can do is deselect, and what I'm doing here is I'm holding down the Command key. Now if you watch my Adobe Illustrator projects, it's the same technique. Holding down the Command key turns any tool into a selection tool. Therefore I can deselect. Now I can hold down the space bar, grab the page, move the page. Now, if in fact you want to have additional margin space or padding or inset to this box, you can do that. Now it's not necessary in this particular case because this is white on white. So as an example, if I come up here to the top right menu, the top center menu, and I go to presentation, this is going to be a presentation of what the document's going to look like when it prints. So since this is white on white, it's not a big deal that I have this margin space. But hit the escape key to get out of that, by the way. However, if this was a box with a colored background, then I would have a bit of a problem because then I'd want to see some kind of text inset. Now, what I want to share with you is Command 0 fits in window. Command 0 fits in window. Command plus zooms in again. Control key plus Control key 0 for Windows. Now, I'm going to do the same thing for this text box too. Now, if I want to be really lazy, I can just copy, select the text box. And what I'm doing is I'm selecting all. Command A. Hold down the Command key to select this text box. Let go of the Command key so it goes back to the text tool and paste. Hold down the Command key to deselect. Click into this text box, let go of the Command key and paste. And again, Windows, that would be the Control key. So there are my 3 text boxes with content in here that I can start dropping in pictures and everything else, etc., etc., etc. Now again, what I want to share with you, if in fact that you want to basically make an inset to that, that has to do with the object box, and the shortcut for that is Command B Macintosh, Control B for Windows. Okay, and we can inset this as much space as we want. So I can basically say this is set up proportionally. So if you wanted to have a 1/4 inch inset, you can actually do 18 points because 18 points is a 1/4 inch. Or again, if I'm really getting hurt, my head is hurting me with this point and pica stuff, I could simply type 0.25, but then you have to put in the inch mark. So what that's going to do is if I hit preview, that now has a nice inset. Now, of course, if you're going to do that, I would have probably done it to all three by selecting all three at the same time by holding down the Shift key. So I'm holding down the Command key to turn it into a selection tool, and I'm holding down the Shift key. Then I can go to the Object menu, Command B for box, Command B for box, Control B for Windows. So again, if I was to put in 0.25 inches and hit the Tab key, so now everything has an inset. Now, in this particular case, I'm not going to do that. Now, the other thing I want to share with you is keep in mind we're in the master pages. So I'm not going to put content because I don't want to see this content on every single page. That would be kind of silly. So what I mean by that, if I go to my pages right now, so this is my page, which just happened there, Command 0 fits in window. So this is my page. Well, that's very strange. I'll figure that out in a second. But I don't want the same content on every page. So I'm going to select all, delete. Now I'm not deleting the box, I'm deleting the content. Command A, select all, delete. Command A, select all, delete key. Not cut, don't understand. Cut is not the same as deleting. Cut cuts to the clipboard. It doesn't delete. The delete key, the one that says delete on it. So now if I go to my document is set up to start typing in my content. Now, if I want to build a new page, I could simply click right down here to create a new page, and it's going to mimic the master page. So how cool is that? So here it could be the front of my trifold, and here is the back of my trifold. So the rest is real as child's play. Now, keep in mind, this is just a preview of what InDesign can do, and to get you accustomed to my teaching technique that I involve you in the thinking process. So it's very important that you start thinking the way the software thinks. Anything about the object is under the object menu. Okay? Now, here's an important step before we close this video. Right now, I can't select those boxes. I can't select those boxes. Right? Well, how can I do that? Well, what you need to pay attention to is that those boxes are coming from the master page. So in order to initialize a text box that's coming from the master page, I have to do Command, Shift, click. Command, Shift, click, Command, Shift, click. And I have to do the same thing for page 2. Now that seems a little, actually I was on page 2. Command, Shift, click, Command, Shift, click, Command, Shift, click. Now you don't have to do this one by default because that was your automatic text frame by default. But I just want to share with you, anything that you want to see from the master pages, you have to Command Shift Click Macintosh, Control Shift Click Windows. So what I mean by that, if I come up here as an example, and let's say just because I can, I'm just going to do a frame, F for frame, and I'm just going to put a frame right here. Now this basically means that I'm going to have the same frame at every single box. And I'm just going to give this some kind of color here. I'm just going to go to my swatches, and I'm going to fill this with blue. Make a change, save a change, could have to get into. So what that did for me right now is if I go back to my pages and I go to page 1, that blue box is on page 1 and that blue box is on page 2. But let's say, just because you want to, see this is coming from my master page, which is totally fine. But the flexibility of the program is this. So let's say on page 1 in the top left hand corner that I do want that blue box. But on the inside of page 2, which is my trifold, again, depending on how you fold this, are you going to fold it accordion style, or are you going to fold it on top of itself from the center out, from the center in? So if I just because I can't, I want to make this box red. So how can I do that? Well, again, in order to affect something that is embedded into the master page, you have to do Command, Shift, click. Command, Shift, click. Now, this is on top of that. So what I need to do here is send this to the back, and that's under the Object menu. Anything about the object is under the Object menu. Object arrange, send to back. So I can either bring to forward or send to back. Actually, this already is in the front, so that was very strange that I was not able to. So I guess I just have that in front. So again, if you want to initialize something from the master page, it's simply Command, Shift, and click. Command, Shift, click. So that's for anything. So now I can basically select this, and I decided to change it to red, and there you go. Now, of course, if you want to delete it or move it or do whatever you want, so here's how master pages think. The master page controls the page by default, but then the page has basically control over the contents of the master page. Now, it's not going to change the contents of the master page, but it does give you the flexibility of changing things on the master page. So that should get you started with building a trifold the right way, the simple way, my way. So my name is Robert Farrell. I appreciate you very much being here. If you're not a member of YouTube, sign up. It's free. There's a lot of free things on YouTube, including, this particular section right here. Now, of course, my objective is to get you to, not in a negative way, but of course I want you to sign up for my courses. Hey, that's how I pay my rent. That's how I put my daughter through college. That's how I celebrate 20 years with my girlfriend and give her great Valentine's gifts based on your help and your support. So I'm here to help you every step of the way. I really work hard in what I do to share with you the simplest, easiest, best way, and it doesn't matter what the software is. Final Cut, After Effects, I teach Blender, Maya, 3D Studio Max. I teach all those programs, and I'm a total expert, but I squeeze the sponge and I get you to think the way the software thinks, because I'm going to quote Benjamin Franklin, which I did this in a couple other videos too. Benjamin Franklin said something absolutely genius that I've been using for the past 26 years. He said this: if you tell me, I'll forget. That's probably true. If you teach me, I'll remember. Well, maybe not. That's not necessarily true. I wasn't paying attention that day. I had a fight with my girlfriend, whatever. But if you involve me, I will learn. So that's my battle cry, involving you in the thinking process. And that's how we learn, because then you can start to make decisions based on what you know. So if you know that in order to affect something, you got to select something. And then once it's selected, what is this? Is it a this? Is it a that? No, it's an object. Therefore, anything about the object is under the object menu: object scale, object rotate, object reflect, etc., etc., etc. Or I can send it to the front, send it to the back, or I can lock the object, I can hide the object, I can change the contents of the object, I could turn this to a text box. Boom! Just like that. Now, how did I do that? Well, it wasn't shock therapy. I want to teach you how to intuitively think about solving problems by getting you to think about the software. And that same objective I have with every piece of software I teach. So you didn't have to remember, oh, that was under the weight. Don't tell me it was the, it was the, I know, it was the, and that's how most people were in software, like a shocked monkey. I don't want to shock you. I want to teach you intelligent. You're an intelligent being. I want you to think the way the software thinks. So that little shortcut, or that little technique I simply did was, anything about the object is under the object menu. Object based on these choices, and that's all menus come to. When you go to a restaurant, those are your choices. These are your choices. Based on these choices, intelligent carbon-based being, what do you want to tell the silicon-based computer to do? Well, I want to change its content. So I can now change it back to a graphic. So therefore, I can put a picture back into it. So it's really that type of thinking. So again, thank you very much for being here. I hope you enjoy this free section of udemy.com/Think, Learn, Earn. My name is Robert. Carpe Diem 2013.